Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk, and I'm just a guy that's been trying to figure out how to play music for quite a long time now. Nothing special. And today we're going to talk about Imposter Syndrome. What it is, the stories we tell ourselves, how it affects us, what we can do about it, and a recent mistake that I made that has made me feel like a complete fraud, phony, and imposter. And now the secret's out, and it's going to make the covers of the front pages of all the important newspapers, and I'll be the laughingstock of the world. What is imposter syndrome? It's just the feeling that we're not qualified to do something, that we're some kind of phony in some aspect of our lives. We've only been lucky. We don't deserve the success that we've achieved, and that someone is going to figure this all out and expose us to the world, that we're just a big fake. We're pretending to be something that we're really not. It's really a very common feeling that lots of people have in lots of aspects of their life, but it's a really powerful feeling that can affect how we do our work and how we see ourselves. Our confidence is really pretty fragile often, and it's really only as strong as the next thing we do. We can be somebody that has tons of success in their career and then make a mistake or two and suddenly question everything. Have I lost it? Was I only here because I was lucky? Is everyone going to realize that I never really had it in me in the first place? We fear that our entire reputation and legacy will be wiped clean based on some mistakes we have. And those mistakes, they become the symbol of our inabilities and our failures. And we worry that everyone's going to find us out. And even when we succeed, sometimes that can cause a lot of imposter syndrome too. We do something and it turns out that people like it, it makes a lot of money, whatever it is you want to do, whatever your measure of success is. And then we ask ourselves, will I ever be able to do that again? Because we're not sure if we can. Who knows? And this can cause us to overwork and compensate. We might justify these feelings by saying it's just because we care too much. But really what we're doing is worrying. Care and worry can be very closely tied together. Or it can cause us to give up, to realize that maybe we really don't have what it takes and that we have no business doing whatever it is we're doing. And then we stop doing it. I think this is the type of thing that really sets in the further you go down a road. So when you're first starting, say, with music production, playing music, you know you're not any good at it. You know that you're a beginner, so you don't have these feelings of being an imposter. Maybe you get the feeling that you're doing something new and it's not something natural for you, but it's okay to be bad at it and it's okay to have failures. But as we go along, achievements and growth can start to make us feel more like an imposter as we start to identify as that thing, as a music producer, and then we go along and maybe something good happens to us. We start to wonder if we were just lucky. How did I get here? No one gave me the right to get here. And we question ourselves. The irony is that achievements and glory can actually make you feel like more of an imposter. I deal with imposter syndrome from time to time in all aspects of my life. When I first started playing music at the age of 14, I felt really behind from everyone else. I didn't feel like I had the same skills or talent as other people and that I didn't belong. As I kept playing, I got a little bit better, but then as soon as I considered myself a decent guitar player, I'd come across somebody who was 10 times better, and then again feel like a fraud, like I had no right calling myself a musician. Accomplishments I had along the way, like recording albums, writing songs, playing shows with bands, only made me feel like more of a fraud a lot of times because no one gave me the permission to do those things. A lot of our tours and records were self-funded. There was no record label. There was nobody telling us we had to do it. There was no one that really cared. We were just doing it ourselves. And sometimes in the dark hours of the night, you'd feel like, well, there's no wonder no one's giving us the permission. No one's signing contracts for us. It's because we shouldn't be doing it. We're frauds. In a lot of ways, doing that stuff yourself is impressive because you have to do all the jobs yourself. But then that voice creeps in your head that anybody could do it if they're willing to put the work in. So you're not special. You're just somebody that kept doing it longer. You didn't realize that you should have stopped along the way like the other people that did. Before I became an Ableton certified trainer, I was releasing live packs on the internet and doing tutorials. I wasn't an expert at using live. I was just sharing what I knew. But over time, just sharing gave the impression to other people that I knew my stuff, that I was some sort of expert. And as that started to go along, I felt a little bit of pressure to know things, to be able to answer questions when people left comments. And I felt if I couldn't answer those, then there was something wrong with me. I felt pretty validated when Ableton allowed me to become a certified trainer. But with that accomplishment came the pressure to really know what I was doing. I felt that I was supposed to be the one that knew the answers. And if I didn't know the answers, I'd get very uncomfortable with that. I had no degree in music. No one really gave permission. Maybe I just fooled Ableton enough to become a certified trainer. Maybe that's what happened. Then I got a job teaching at Berkeley online. And again, it was like, okay, here I am. I'm teaching classes for students that will one day get degrees that I don't even have. So that thought would linger in my head, especially when I'd be in my live classes with my students and not know the answer, or say something wrong and realize I made a mistake. Oh no, I'm a big fraud. They're going to go off to the people, the administration at Berkeley, and let them know that this Brian Funk doesn't know what he's talking about. He's some kind of idiot, and they paid good money to be in this class, and they deserve a better teacher. I've lost sleep over these thoughts. As a high school English teacher, I get the same feelings. And that's funny because I do have a degree and a certification to teach, but it doesn't protect me from the feeling of being an imposter. Maybe I'm not as literary as some of the other teachers, or I don't have the same skills and understandings of aspects of grammar. I'm not an author. I'm not some professional editor anywhere. I'm just a guy that went to school long enough and jumped through enough hoops. I was compliant, and I completed the necessary steps to become a teacher, and I got my teaching certification. Okay, great. But then I actually got a job teaching, so shouldn't that kind of solve this imposter syndrome? There was a school willing to hire me. Well, I happened to student teach at a school that had a few English teachers retiring that year. My timing was good. I got lucky with that. While I was student teaching, I was nice and friendly to people, and when it was time to apply for the job, some of those people vouched for me, saying I was a good teacher. It was flattering, but I knew in my heart that they'd never seen me teach for 1 minute of one day. I could be teaching breakdancing lessons in my class for all they knew, and they were saying that I was a good person for the job. Again, maybe I was just nice, and that's how I got the job. And now here I am teaching for many years, and I still run into challenges with students and motivation and trying to get the lessons to matter. And I go home often questioning myself. What am I doing? I've been teaching for so long. How come I can't figure this out? Why is this still challenging? And again, those feelings of being an imposter come through. It can happen socially. You say something that's supposed to be funny when no one laughs, or you say something that gets taken the wrong way, and suddenly you're questioning yourself. Am I some kind of idiot? Am I not a nice person? Am I insensitive? We can feel this in all parts of our lives. The truth is we usually need help in life, but when we have this feeling of being an imposter, needing help makes us feel like we're not good enough. And then this can start to breed perfectionism. Like, so I got to prove I'm not an imposter, so I got to make sure everything is done perfectly. I put a lot of stress on myself, and I try to do the impossible, which is to make something perfect. And that can lead to not ever putting any work out there because we're afraid it's not going to be any good. And this leads me to the story of something I just did that has made me call into question everything about myself. A mistake I made that seems so stupid, I can't even believe I made it. I've been talking a lot about my new book, The 5-Minute Music Producer. I was very proud, released a book, never thought I would do that. And I really feel like this information in there is very helpful to people. Well, the book's been out for about a month. There's been a lot of people that have ordered it. I'm so thankful for that. I got an email the other day from somebody that said, hey, the typo on the cover kind of undermines your entire book, old chap. And he pointed out the word production. And I looked at the book, production. There's no way I could have messed up production. I look at it on the cover of my book. I have a printed copy, is the word production. And I mixed up the T and the I. So it's spelled Production. Spelled production wrong. Can't believe it. This has to be a mistake. In fact, it was even worse because many years ago when I started this podcast, I made a logo for the music production podcast, and I made the same typo of production, spelling it wrong, mixing up the I and the T. I didn't notice it for a year until somebody emailed me and said, "Hey, you spelled that word wrong." Oh my God, I didn't notice. So I switched it and, didn't really say much about it. It's kind of embarrassing, but hopefully not too many people noticed it. I didn't notice it, and I probably look at that logo more than anyone else. Same thing with the book. I looked at that book. I checked it over and over. I can't believe on the cover of all places I would make this mistake. What is wrong with me? So as I get this email, I feel the pit of my stomach drop. I can't believe I've done this. And this feeling of pride and happiness for having accomplished creating a book washed away completely. Now, the book is no longer an accomplishment. It's a symbol of my incompetence. And it's in many aspects of my life. As a music teacher, I'm an idiot. I spelled production wrong. As an English teacher, I had a typo on the cover of my book. It felt unforgivable. I wanted to crawl in a hole and hide or jump out the nearest window. It made me want to quit, pack everything up. My self-confidence was shattered. And it shows you just how fragile our self-confidence is. It can take one mistake to just destroy it. I've since corrected it. So if you have a copy of the book, digital or real paperback, with that mistake on the cover, I apologize sincerely. But you, I guess, have proof that you have a first edition of the book. And all I can do is maybe work real hard to make something of myself so that maybe someday that will be important, and maybe it'll be worth something special to you that you have one of the first probably 50 copies of the book with the typo on it. But in a way, and this is me trying to turn a frown upside down, the typo does embody some of the philosophies I hold true. And this is what I really have to tell myself. And this is like where we have to start thinking when we make mistakes like this. For one, I've said many times on this podcast that done is better than perfect. Finish something. Get your music out there, even if it's not perfect. At least it's out there. You'll never get something perfect anyway. And music shouldn't be perfect. So finish it, get it done to a point, and move on to the next project so you can do the next one better. We can do the work and correct course later. Lucky for me, the paperback books are sold on demand by Amazon, so it's not like I have a warehouse full of these things with all these typos on it. It's a matter of fixing it on Amazon, changing the manuscript and the cover so that the new ones that come out don't have this mistake anymore. So, not a life-ending mistake, I guess. We got to just keep pushing forward. When we make mistakes, we got to move on. Because mistakes and embarrassments are really a form of resistance, the force trying to prevent you from doing your work. And if you let them get to you, it might prevent you from doing the work the next time. And I got to tell you, for probably that whole day, I was ready to just quit everything. I just felt so foolish over a little typographical error, but on the cover and some of the largest letters in the entire book, I got those words wrong. I don't understand. It makes me kind of realize something funny about how we read is we don't really read the letters and decode them. We see the words as a chunk and we just interpret it to be what it's supposed to be. I showed the book to lots of people. Only one person has ever said that they saw the mistake. I felt like that email could have been a little nicer at first. And one of my defense mechanisms was to be a little annoyed and angry at that person. But that's foolish too. I'm grateful they wrote to me so that I can fix the problem, because I probably wouldn't have seen it and I'd probably be showing more people about it. And then maybe I'd get another set of embarrassment further down the road when I could at least have it out of the way now. And that's an ego thing too. When somebody tells you something that's true and the defense mechanism might be, well, you could have been nicer about it. Well, what does that mean? That I'm too weak to take the truth, whether it's harsh and blunt, to just take it as it is? Because it's the truth. It's real. So I am very grateful to whoever sent me that email. And I understand your point. It's the same thing I tell my students about their writing, is that if you make a mistake like this, people are going to think you're an idiot. They're not going to take what you have to say seriously. I make this speech all the time in my classes and say, you could have the most world-changing ideas in this paper, but if you spell the title wrong, no one's going to read it and no one's going to find out what your ideas are. And anyone that disagrees with you can just say, are you really going to listen to the idiot that made a mistake on the cover? So there could be people out there that are saying that about me. I'm hoping that really no one saw it and just didn't notice, except this one person. But hey, it's something you got to live with. I didn't die, though, which is nice. So this also kind of puts problems into perspective. There is a risk when you put things out. This is why a lot of people don't finish things. This is why they don't release things, because it is a fear of embarrassment. You're putting yourself out there. You're putting yourself on the line. It is scary. And it might come back that people don't like it, or they think it's dumb, or there's something wrong with it, whatever it is. But we can't let that stop us. We have to do it anyway. And like I said, I didn't die. There are a lot worse things that could happen to a person. So this is a good problem to have in a lot of ways. It passes, and you can fix things. It's also impossible to catch every mistake, especially when you're working alone. And that can be an excuse people have to not do things. Well, how could you write a book without an editor? That's probably a really legitimate question, but that's the only way it was going to get done. So that's what I did. Maybe next time I might consider, but I probably won't, to be honest. I'll just be more careful with the cover. So you can't catch every mistake, and you might put work out there that's flawed. It's happened to me in the past too, whether it's maybe a missing audio file in a live pack, and that's really embarrassing when, especially if somebody pays money for it and it doesn't work. You got to fix the problem, and I've fixed them all as fast as I can, but they get out there sometimes. It's the risk of releasing things, but it should not be something that stops you from doing it. It will only make you stronger. And the other thing it kind of showed me too is your work is really most important to you. And you can look at that in two ways. It can be kind of sad that you're the only one that cares about your music or your book or your whatever, your video on YouTube. But it shouldn't, I don't think we should look at it that way. It's your creation. It means so much to you. For me, with this book, only one person noticed it, to my knowledge. Only one person out of who knows how many people saw it. Makes you wonder, do people actually look at what we do? Do they really take it in? Is it just a lesson in how we decode words and language, which I think there's a lot of studies that show you can kind of mix up the letters within a word and still understand what they say pretty well. So maybe we don't need to really go letter by letter. Could be a psychological thing. And maybe there are people that saw it and just didn't say anything. Maybe they felt bad. I've had that before where you realize something's wrong with someone, like maybe there are flies down on their pants and you feel weird saying something or whatever it is. Or maybe they're glad. Haha, look at this idiot. There he is. He's finally shown himself as being an idiot. But we can't let that stop us. So what do we do? How do we fight imposter syndrome? How do we deal with it? As I've said before, this is not a new thing in my life. I go through this all the time. This is just a big example I can think of where I really did kind of prove myself to be a dummy on some levels. But there are some things you can do to kind of fight this off. And one is to realize that you will never become a master at anything. And that's a bit of a philosophy of mine. You never become a master because it keeps you in the mindset of someone that's always learning and always growing. If you decide you're an expert or a master, sometimes you can sit back and you can not learn anything. You can close your mind. You can think that nobody has anything to offer to you. And if you make a mistake in that mindset, then the imposter syndrome is going to hit hard. So if we keep the idea that we're always learning and we have more room to grow, it's a great way to stay open-minded and fresh and also not let your mistakes hurt you as much. Because every mistake is an opportunity to learn. Like don't rush. Or if you are going to rush, be okay with having some mistakes getting through. Or get some help. Or if you don't want to get some help, make sure you're okay with maybe some mistakes happening. I guess I could have hired somebody to edit this book for me, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to finish it. I wanted to get it out there. I have to be okay with that decision. We can also be honest with who we are. Don't let labels or audiences or past accomplishments or degrees or certifications make you feel like you have to be more than you are. We all have flaws. We all have failures. And even within our areas of expertise, we can still make mistakes. We got to be okay with that. Don't let the labels, the degrees get to your head. Don't let that make you think that you have to be more than you actually are. I mean, really, that's part of what makes each person interesting anyway, is their own unique set of strengths and flaws. We can get comfortable with the phrase, I don't know. And that's really helped me in my teaching career, is the willingness and the ability to say, I don't know. To not try to act like a person that knows everything, because I'm not. And to act any other way is to lie. And I find that my students often respect me more when I'm willing to admit I don't know something, or if I did something wrong. If there's a mistake, own up to it. Plus, it's a great lesson for a student to see an example of a person willing to admit they're wrong or that they don't know something. And it might actually help prevent them from getting their own imposter syndrome, because they'll learn that it's okay to not know or to be wrong. I've also used meditation to help with this. I've had conversations on the podcast with people that also meditate, and the type of meditation I do, I think, is like mindfulness meditation, where you're just paying attention to your thoughts as they come in and not let them control you. I like to think of them as stories or movies. And meditation has helped me the most with my teaching, because there'll be days where I'm not sure what to do with a class. Maybe I don't have a plan for the next day, and I'm not enjoying where it's going, and things aren't working out the way they should be, whatever it is. And I start questioning, am I a failure? Is everyone else going to find out soon? How in the world was I allowed to have the responsibility to educate people's children? And this is a thought, really. And it's like turning on a movie, and the movie is called You're a Failure and You Don't Know What You're Doing, and everyone is about to find out. These are just thoughts, and it's only happening in your head. Meditation just helps me recognize when I'm letting my thoughts get carried away, and I can change that movie to something else. It's like taking the DVD out of my head and putting on something different. Maybe a DVD called, hey, you've been teaching a long time. You've had lots of problems along the way. You've faced challenges and you've figured it out. And even when you fail, you figure something out, you learn, and it makes you better next time. We can change the stories we tell ourselves, and we can be vulnerable. So allow your shortcomings to show. People often relate to them. I thought about this with the book. I considered maybe just quietly fixing the error and hoping no one else noticed. I even thought about maybe just changing it by crossing it out with a red line and correcting it in pen next to it, almost like a teacher would on your essay. I thought that would kind of embody one of the philosophies of the book, that everything doesn't have to be perfect. So my cover's not perfect. I decided to just change it, but I wanted to speak about it too, to be out in the open about it and use this as an example for us all to learn. Because maybe something like this has happened to you, you've made a mistake, and maybe people noticed, maybe they didn't, but owning up to it and being vulnerable, I think, is a good way to go. So that's what I'm trying to do with this, and it does feel good to speak about it. We should recognize our feelings too and not try to suppress or fight them, to talk to others. It is a good feeling to let people know. I've felt a lot better after talking to some people about this mistake and letting them give me a little perspective too, that it's not the end of the world, that you can change it. This is not an irreversible error. And, there might be a little damage here or there, but what are you going to do? Move on. Try something else. Keep going. Don't compare yourselves to others. That's an important one too. When we start doing that, we inevitably fail. We're less than that person because we can never be just like another person. They'll always have something we don't have. And that's because we're all unique. And especially with music, you might hear something in another person that they have that you don't. And undoubtedly you have your own uniqueness too. So we got to let that be our advantage. The things that make you, you are your specialties. So kind of dig into them, even if they are flaws a little bit. Let that be your characteristic. When we hit problems and challenges, which we will, we got to get some help, talk to people, maybe take a break, get some fresh air, take your mind off it for a while. If you stew on it over and over, like I did that day, I found that typo. Had a lot of time to just think about it that day. It's not healthy and it doesn't really help. It's inevitable we're going to run into some kind of imposter syndrome. And I think that's especially true with something like music or any kind of creative arts, because there's no certificate you need to start. You don't need a degree. You don't need any kind of verification. You don't need a record deal. You can just do it. And you can actually do it quite well all by yourself without any outside validation. But it can make us feel like we don't belong. And I get that a lot. I'm around a lot of people who are amazing musicians that are well trained. I talk to them on the podcast all the time. And I often think about, what business do I have having this conversation with this person? How did I get here? What happened? Who did I fool to get to this point? That's a normal feeling. We all go through it, and it's important to recognize it when it happens and change the story. Change the story to something that serves you better, because it's really all it is. It's just a story. Probably to many people in reality, if you're making your own music and you're putting it out there and you're releasing it, that's probably pretty impressive to a lot of people. Not everybody does it. Not everyone can do it, but you did, and that's cool. You should be proud of that. So you're not an imposter. If you're doing it, if you're making music right now, you're a music producer. If you're painting right now, you're a painter. If you're sitting on the couch watching TV, you're a viewer of TV. You are what you do repeatedly. So do the things that you want to become. Do the things that the people you want to be like do. If you want to be a music producer, work on your music, and you're a music producer. There's no certificate you get. There's no credential. There's no award you get after so many hours. You just do it, and do it for the fun of it. Enjoy yourselves, and thanks for listening to this. It feels good to get it off my chest a little bit and to speak about it. And I hope it helps you the next time you run into some sort of problem in your music making. You don't know where to go next. You can't finish something. It's okay. It happens to all of us. And don't let it stop you from moving forward. Don't let it stop you from putting your work out there. Don't rob the world of what you have to offer, even if it's not perfect, because it's not going to be. There'll be mistakes out there. And at the end of the day, I think you'd be happy to know that you put it out there, even in its imperfections, rather than no one ever seeing it or hearing it ever. So keep going, keep making music, keep creating. And thanks for listening to the Music Production Podcast. Have a great day.